become synonymous with superstardom.
Fans are both loving and frightening.
I thought I got to me because he's just so great. He waves at me and says hello. I can't believe it. He waves at me.
He's charged with energy.
He's got a lot of soul. Oh, he's lovely.
He is simply Michael Jackson.
Like swimming, play basketball, catching and distancing.
Hi you guys, welcome to the J-Zone, and tonight we are talking about Michael Jackson's The Legend Continues. This is a documentary from 1988 that I believe originally aired on Showtime. It was titled as Motown on Showtime. It was an hour long and it chronicles Michael's life from his early days to the Jackson 5 up until the time of this recording, which was around the Bad era. Now, if you can see the beautiful cover there. This video and documentary is so true and dear to my heart. It's been a part of me my whole life. I've watched it hundreds of times ever since I was like 2 years old. I knew how to work a VCR. I would put it in and watch it. And now this isn't my original copy. I wore the original one out so far so much. I watched it so much, but this is, I brought this on eBay back in 2021, so it was sealed. So such a beautiful cover art. There you go, Michael Jackson. The Legend Continues, a presentation of Motown. And this has only been, I don't believe this has been released as an official DVD or on streaming. So there's the back cover there. And the VHS here. Now this is, I have discovered it is on YouTube, and what's interesting is there's two different versions that I noticed on YouTube. One, which is this, seems to be what I've had and come to love, is like an edited version, so they've cut a few things out than what seemed to be the original version. In the original, there seemed to be like a contest where they picked 3 people and they were able to like meet Michael Jackson and be featured in this documentary, which in the original version, which is on YouTube, that version's about 55 minutes long, so it's about 5 minutes longer. And we get an introduction of them and how they came to be picked and be a part of this documentary. In the edited VHS version, they're featured in there, but it doesn't have that introduction scene. So there are 3 people there. There's 2 young women and a young man in there who won the contest and got to meet Michael and be featured in this documentary. Now this was narrated by the great James Earl Jones, which is great. If you see me looking down, I always make my notes to don't forget when I forget what I'm talking about. Several interviews on here. Dick Clark, of course, if you know him, he hosted American Bandstand for so many years, so he's featured here talking about Thriller, and see some clips of Michael performing on American Bandstand in 1972. He was performing Ben, which, if you like Ben, it's a good song. What else? Then we see a clip from 1980 on American Bandstand where he's kind of describing Michael talking about short films. You know, Michael called them short films. His music videos, he called and perceived them as short films. We hear from Sammy Davis Jr., who was a big influence on Michael. Michael looked up to a lot of old golden age Hollywood stars, so Sammy Davis Jr. was a great inspiration. We hear a little bit from him. The only sibling, I believe, that's mentioned is Marlon Jackson, which is Michael's the younger brother, closest to his age. We hear a little bit from him and their early days, their rise from Motown to moving with CBS Records in 1976, and how their Destiny album was like the first platinum selling album that they did. They produced it entirely, and it was gold platinum album. And we hear some tunes for that album like Sunshine, Moonlight, Good Times, Blaming on the Boogie. That's one of my favorites from that album. And of course, you know, let's dance, let's shout, shake your body down to the ground. I'm not real big on that one. It's a great track, but my favorite from that album is probably Blaming on the Boogie. Who else do we hear from? Katharine Hepburn, which she's great. She talks about what a brilliant dancer and perfectionist that Michael is. We hear from her a few times. And we hear from Michael's dear friend Elizabeth Taylor, who I guess I kind of discovered her through her friendship with Michael. And so I kind of gotten to know Elizabeth Taylor more and gotten into some of her films and what she did in her career. But she talks about how Michael is just such a unique talent and soul and such a special person. And of course we hear from other people. So I will refer to this. We see a little clip of a young Janet Jackson. We see a lot of home videos, probably at that time that were never before seen, of the Jackson 5 backstage. And I'm going to read a little bit about what's on here. He's the world's best known entertainer, a singer who has sold well over 200 million records, a dancer who defies the laws of physics. As a performer, he has no peer. And as a humanitarian, he has made a lasting impression as an expression of love that has reached billions. He is Michael Jackson. And you know what? I'm so disappointed, and I forgot to put my glove on. So who else appears in this? Dick Clark. We hear a little bit from Suzanne DePast, who was with Motown and was there from the very beginning of Michael and Jackson 5 early days. We'll see quite a bit of her. And there, Quincy Jones, who Michael met while filming The Wiz, and Michael was looking for someone to produce his next album, which ended up being Off the Wall. As you know, Quincy Jones produced what would be like Michael's biggest albums, Off the Wall, Thriller, which is the biggest, and then Bad. We hear from Cyndi Lauper, Gene Kelly, who's also an influence on Michael, Sophia Loren, which I believe they were also great friends, Yoko Ono, Martin Scorsese, I believe they were friends. I know he directed, which I think I consider my favorite Michael short film, Bad, which is 18 minutes. Elizabeth Taylor, mentioned her. So yeah, this features quite a bit of songs through his career. They talk about Motown 25, which took place in 1983. I have not seen the whole special in its entirety. I've seen bits and clips of different performances, and of course I've seen the Jackson and Michael Jackson's performance of Billie Jean's many times. Now, this was the first time that the original Jackson 5 reunited for the first time in 8 years. The original Jackson 5, Jackie, Marlon, Tito, Jermaine, and Michael. Of course, Jermaine had stayed with Motown, so this was his first time reuniting with his brothers, and then Randy kind of came in at the end of the performance. And then we pretty much see him do Billie Jean in his entirety, and we see it's intercut with scenes of Suzanne DePast speaking, and she mentioned how the crowd was just so mesmerized and how nobody had seen anything like that. And she mentioned that the entire audience was caught in a spell. And when he did that moonwalk, it was just over. So, like I said, I wasn't born then, but I just wonder what it felt like if you watched it for the first time, and people who watched that, what it felt like watching Michael perform Billie Jean at that time and do that moonwalk for the first time. So if you did remember seeing that, or just your thoughts in general, I would love to hear from you and what you thought. Especially seeing these things in real time back then as they happened. I would love to hear from that. And there are quite a few songs in here that, from watching this for so many years, that I liked, but I never quite knew, like, where they came from, which album, until much later when, like, streaming and research and all that. So some of those are, let's see on here. Feeling alright. Not feeling too good myself. We see a clip of that from Diana Ross's 1971 special, which I believe that was a cover that they did. I don't know if that's on an official album. I think that is on a live album. So I discovered a lot of these after Michael's untimely death in 2009. And, of course, so many great ones. Never can say goodbye. No, 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 I never can say goodbye. And there is one called Ready or Not, which I know the Fugees did a version years later. So I really like that. That's shown with like a montage of like Jackson 5 Mania. So I always loved that song and that scene. And that was featured, I believe, on their third album, which I came to find years later. So I love that one. And then With the Child's Heart, which is one of my favorite Michael Jackson songs. So that's featured in this documentary. With the child's heart, go face the worries of the day. With the child's heart. So we touch on the enormous success, which is Thriller, and how much it sold. Like at that time, I believe it's like 40 million copies. I know it's like sold a lot more since then. And then we get to the segment on We Are the World, which I love. Written by Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones. We are the world. We are the children. We are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving. And the impact that had on the world. And also like the part where they interview a man who is from Make-A-Wish Foundation, which, as you don't know, I've been teasing it in my other videos. I was fortunate to meet Michael Jackson when I was around 3 years old at Neverland through Make-A-Wish Foundation. So there is going to be a big story time coming real soon on that. I can't wait for that. And so it ends with the performance of Heartbreak Hotel, or This Break Hotel, whichever you want to call it, from Bad. And then we conclude. And there's a song at the end. It's not listed on this list of songs, but what song is that? We've been together for such a long time. Now music and me. It's another one of my favorite songs, and of course that's from his 1973 album, Music and Me, which I found out later. So yeah, I think I mentioned pretty much what I wanted to, but I just want you to know how much I love this, and this will always be like one of my #1 favorite Michael Jackson documentaries that I always go back to every year. His death anniversary, his birthday, whatever time of year, I'll go back to it. So, like, if you've seen this documentary, let me know your thoughts on it and what you thought. Like I said, it's called Michael Jackson, The Legend Continues. It is on YouTube. And they have both versions. This edited version, which is around 50 minutes long, and, like, the extended cut, I guess you want to call it, which is about 54, 55 minutes long. So let me know your thoughts, and if you're interested in hearing me talk about more things, Michael, albums, short films, singles, and of course my story time about the time I met Michael Jackson, let me know about that if you want to look forward to that. And so I think I've touched on everything. Alright, again, Jay, this was the J-Zone. You can find me on Instagram at the JZone87, and Instagram and Facebook for all things MJ. I'll put it down below. Excuse me. Original Neverland Kid 90, one word. Facebook and Instagram for all things MJ and Jackson family related. All right, until next time, you guys, take care. Bye-bye.